I 23 meters want to leave 23F my fiance after what happened at her bachelorette party. For starters, the last 2 months has been rocky at best, and I am finally seeing through her manipulative nonsense. Anytime we are alone together, we can't be together 5 minutes without arguing. We have had multiple deep conversations where I have been on the verge of leaving her, but I've always held on for some dumb reason. Here are my concerns with her. She has no value or respect in my feelings and boundaries. She is a lot of times belligerent towards me when we don't agree on something, and will resort to slapping me or throwing things when arguments get heated. I have never laid hands on her or thrown things, ever. She has given me her engagement ring back in arguments before, and told me to leave, then later rescinds what she said when I say I'm done. Her affection towards me is non-existent at times. I feel like a lot of times I'm the only one participating in the relationship, and she is a roommate. We haven't had S-time in months and probably participated in S-time activity 3-4 times this year. So there has been a lot leading up to this that's sent me over the edge. Now I'm not gonna point fingers at her and say she is completely to blame. I can be a jerk, and I am overprotective at times. I can get down in the dumps and be a little bit lazy and slack on around the house chores for a day or so, but never let it get bad. She claims that the reason she is the way she is because of her self-body image, and my laziness. In all of this, both of our bachelorette parties were this weekend, and last week we had a mutual agreement: no strip clubs, because we find it not to be our cup of tea. Well, I overheard her talking to her friend about going to one, so I pulled her aside and said, I'm not stupid, so why did you lie and keep that from me? In which she said she was going to tell me, and she was not hiding it from me, but she was. So I was upset because of her lying to me. So we got in a big argument about it, and I stated my reasoning behind not wanting her to go, that it was borderline cheating and I don't want her to be around the dangerous people that go there. She said I never let her have fun and that I'm controlling her. I said it's not a control thing, it's a boundary thing. She ended up going anyway, and I was pissed off because she didn't care that I had my concerns and didn't want her to go regardless. So I hardly talked to her yesterday, and my respect was badly damaged in this event. Then, to add insult to injury, she went to a dance club last night. We have an app where we can mutually share our location, her idea, in which she turned off her location in the middle of the night. So I immediately began to have an anxiety attack upon noticing this and completely break down crying. I call her best friend, whom was with her at the time, and she said she is having fun. Why she has her location turned off, I will have her text you in the morning. So I believe she turned her location off in drunken stupor for some reason, and today she forgot why she did. After last night, it sent me to my absolute breaking point, and I have been ready to walk away. I don't want to put up with this for the rest of my life. If I'm overreacting or if my feelings are valid. Redditor's reactions, story 2 after. Redditor 1, all those things, tell me that you guys getting married is a terrible idea. There is little to no trust, there is nothing happening in the bedroom, you guys are not having a good time together either, and you apparently argue all the time. Why would you want making the breakup even harder when all the signs are here? Redditor follow-up. Don't marry someone just because you got them pregnant, or not in your case. Especially if they are mean and abusive. Go find a better partner. A smart man learns from his mistakes, a wise man learns from other people's mistakes. Redditor 2, you can end a relationship for any reason you want. I think you have a lot of reasons to not want to continue in this relationship, and none of them have anything to do with strip clubs. At the very least, postpone the wedding. If you stay together, you have a lot of work to do before being legally joined. Redditor follow-up, I was thinking the same thing. The strip club is the least of the reasons why he should leave her. Redditor 3, nothing that you mentioned sounds worth staying. Like 0 green flags. Story 2, I 29M am the victim of paternity fraud and the perpetrator 28F is persistently trying to guilt me into continuing our relationship. It feels like I'm being manipulated and I need honest opinions about whether or not you think that's the case, or if I'm just being a scumbag and should continue providing care for this child. If you don't know what paternity fraud is, to sum it up, it's a nightmare come true for every guy who wants kids. It's when you and your so have a baby, and then you find out at a later date that the child is not yours, and the mother of the child knew you weren't the father but led you to believe so for various reasons. Oh, where to begin? I guess if you don't feel like reading the entire post, those are the facts. I was conned by both the mother and the father into raising their child. The mother expressly stated that she revealed this information to me so she could get her and her daughter as far away from me as she possibly could, as I made a terrible partner and it's a good opportunity to teach her daughter how to stand up for herself in life. These are her actual words. Despite this, she is also starting to realize the impact of her actions and is beginning to panic about her situation as a single mother, which has recently inspired her to make attempts at persuading me to continue our romantic partnership, and my relationship to her daughter as her father, and I want her to stop using her child to guilt me into providing for both of them any longer. But if you want more details, it would only make sense to go in chronological order, from the time we met to now, 5 days after I received the results from the DNA test showing 0% chance of paternity. This actually spans a relatively short amount of time, as the child is only 10 months old and we met only 5 months prior to the time of conception. When we met, we had an instant explosive connection. In hindsight, I see she was simply molding herself into the woman I was most attracted to, and she would aggressively pursue time. This was from day one, so this should have been my first red flag, but hey, I was new in town and I thought, well, I can't say no to time if it's handed to me on a silver platter. So I rolled with it. We had a great time going on adventures around our area. I live in a mountain town and we felt that feeling you get when you think the universe or some higher power is escorting you into life's greatest moments and everything is actually perfect. Well, that perfection was suddenly disrupted by the news of her being pregnant. This was about 3.5 months after we met. Yes, you read that correctly. So we both talk about it and she eventually decides to get an abortion. Some other guy pays for this, so in the end, based on what I'm going through now, I can't be entirely sure who was responsible for that pregnancy. Despite this, we continue to hang out and see each other annually. It is around this time, I learn she's paying for another guy's phone bill. I find this out because she was short on money and needed $200, which I provided. It is also around this time that she begins demanding a label for our relationship. I don't really care for labels, it feels like something teenagers do to help them more easily navigate life. For me, it's clearly obvious when a romantic partnership is established, and as such, the necessity of a label doesn't make much sense, so I told her this and she rebels. She ends up going out on a date with our coworker. I don't see her for about a week. It is around this time I'm moving into a new apartment, so she lets me borrow her car to move my stuff. My phone was broken at the time, so she also lets me borrow her phone so she could get into contact with me if she needed anything. I admit this is a bit nefarious, but she told me she was dating someone else a few days prior, so I looked through her phone. In hindsight, I think she wanted me to look through it. What I found was multiple conversations with the actual father about plans to meet up. I never said a word and actually subdued the memory quite well, as it's only now that I'm able to recall that this happened. I try to think nothing of it. I rationalize that she's free to do whatever she wants. If she wants to date other people, that's cool with me. I try to be as open-minded as I possibly could. I remember she actually talked about the dates she had been on, and I remember asking if they had time. Her reply was that they didn't. I believe trust is the one priority of any romantic partnership, so I applied it here and trusted her. I wasn't mad about it, I simply wanted to know for health reasons and if she became pregnant. Well, turns out she did become pregnant. We had discussed after the abortion that if she was ever pregnant again, we would do our very best to work as a team to raise that child. So when she found out, she told me and began sobbing. I didn't know what the tears were from at the time. I only thought she was crying because she was still emotionally raw from the abortion. Now I know why she was crying. She knew that the child she was carrying wasn't mine. I asked her that day, 3 times in fact, if there was any chance at all that I wasn't the father. She reassured me that I was 100% the father. I remember working with the child's father one day and directly asking him if they had time, and telling him that I was asking because the mother was pregnant. He assured me they didn't have time. I wanted to be extra sure who the child's biological father was because that matters to me. It's my one criteria for being a father. I can't remember the details, but around this time we began referring to each other as husband and wife. I believe she began to do this because I remember not feeling too comfortable about it, but I rolled with it for the sake of the child. My one priority was that she grew up in a household with her biological parents. This is what I wanted, and I made it known to both the mother and the father. I trusted both of them and they both directly lied to me. With faith in the fact that there was no way I wasn't this unborn child's biological father, I began mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially preparing myself to be a father. I read books, I immediately begin saving large chunks of money, I picked up a second job, I started looking for higher paying jobs with good benefits. I did everything I could to get us prepared for the long haul. I was successful in getting a new higher paying job with good benefits just in time for the birth. I was there in the delivery room when she was born, and a lady from Child Services came in and had me sign a form that established my legal guardianship over the child. I remember asking the mother one last time if there was any chance at all that I wasn't the father, and she still denied any chance of that being possible. Hell, we even gave the child my last name because of this discussion. I was committed, but little did I know I was committed to a lie. The first few months were tough. The mother suffered a severe bout of postpartum depression. It was so severe that it actually landed her in a psychiatric hospital after she almost committed suicide. She was unstable for sure, but it was during this time that I suffered a lot of aggressive physical and emotional abuse. She would relentlessly blame me for literally everything. In short, it was hell. I was constantly putting my job on the line by coming in late, having to leave early, or take multiple days off, all to make sure she didn't hurt herself or her child. After her discharge from the hospital, she was prescribed Zoloft, and that actually helped a lot. She was level-headed and began to enjoy life again. Although there was still a consistent message that she has always delivered every now and then, which was that she felt like she did all the work in the relationship. I was always accused of not caring enough, but that was so far from the truth. It ducking sucked suffering through those attacks because all I did was care. What inspired her to say any of this, because all her accusations were refutable with true facts that proved the contrary. It was madness. We recently started to get into a good rhythm when all of a sudden she decided to pick up a second job. Before she got this job, she wanted to know what I thought about it. I told her it all depends on how that affects care for her child. She told me that she had worked out a child-sharing plan with her friend and future co-worker. I didn't see how that would work out when they were both scheduled together and voiced my concern about how that would actually lower our net income. She reassured me that she could handle it. Well, she couldn't and went into the red paying for a babysitter. We had previously worked out an agreement that went through 2 revisions, one of which went on paper where she worked out the math to make sure it was fair according to her own standards, that stated we had $X 30 to contribute to the cost of living per month. She said she had only $12 when that date rolled around, and I told her she was being irresponsible, and that I think she should probably quit that second job. Her defense mechanism is to run away. This time, the way she ran away was by completely destroying me with a nuclear truth bomb, and told me I wasn't the child's father. This was while I was at work, also taking care of her child while she was at her second job. I was in a massive amount of shock. I'm devastated. My daughter, as I knew her, no longer exists. I was deceived, all because she was afraid of being alone through pregnancy and birth. She vaporized my ability to trust her, but she's begging me to give her a second chance. How? How the duck am I going to do that? I keep playing the scenario over and over and over again in my head and cannot think of a situation where I could trust her. This massive lie isn't the only time she's lied about anything either. She constantly lied about many small insignificant things, and even worse, she's terrible about being honest with herself. I don't want to be in that kind of a relationship. To me, it feels like allowing it to continue is akin to allowing the abuse and manipulation to continue. She continues to send pictures of her child, reminding me that I was once her father. Since she paid for this month's rent, she'll come over and carefully place some of her things to remind me I was once her father. She's begging me to give her a second chance because she doesn't want to see me abandon her daughter because of a mistake she made. I've told her she needs to move on. I've also begun the process of getting her to sign documents to end our domestic partnership. She's been fairly compliant. To sum up how I feel, it feels like I'm in mourning and I'm beginning to recognize signs of depression. I will definitely be seeing a therapist. Thank you for reading this if you've made it this far. I've talked to friends and family, and they all support my decision to cut ties permanently, which is nice, but I still have this awful feeling that I'm just now realizing maybe the slowly creeping depression rather than guilt. At any rate, thank you and let me know what you think. Redditor's reactions. Redditor 1, yes, cut contact. Hard no contact. Stop getting caught up in the drama. Do whatever you need to do legally. And see a therapist. Redditor 2, she vaporized my ability to trust her, but she's begging me to give her a second chance. Duck everything about that. She's a chronic liar about things big and small. Get the duck out. Redditor 3, do not go back to that abuse. This is a horrible thing for a human being to do. She's horrendous. No contact immediately. Block her on every single thing. Does she have a key to your place? Change the locks, so she can't just come and mess with you. Always ignore her if she knocks and wants to just talk, because screw her. She's a psychopath. Op comment, thank you, everyone, for replying. I'll have you know I left the relationship successfully and I'm in a good state of mind. I'm staying active and busy. I mean like really busy. So maybe that's just me masking the depression, because anytime I think about the baby I get really ducking sad. Even typing this I'm fighting thinking about her, but it's getting easier.